We are still on the topic of representing qualitative data in graphs. And so the next type of graph is a bar chart or a bar graph. So a bar chart is used where categories of data are represented as bars or pillars. The height or length of bars are typically linked to the scale of an axis parallel with the bar. So what that means is the height of this bar is related to the this vertical axis next to it. So this bar, which represents the category, the white ethnicity, which is 63.8, the height of this is right here at 63.8, which is between 60 and 70%. So adjacent bars have a gap between them, and they typically do not share a border. So you'll notice that there are gaps between each of these borders, and that's to clearly delineate each category. All right, so what we've got here in figure 2.5 is a bar chart, which is showing representing ethnicities in the United States in 2010. And on the left-hand side, we have by percent. So this is relative frequency from 0 to 70%. So bar charts make it easier to use counts instead of percentages. So here, each of these bars were graphed with percentages. But if we wanted to use frequency, we can put frequency numbers on top of each bar. And that's much easier to do on a bar chart than in a pie chart, for example. And once more, bar charts usually do not need a legend to read them. So because on a bar chart, the categories are listed along the x-axis, you don't need a legend off to the side to explain each of these bars. So as with any chart or graph you create, you want to create one that is the easiest and simplest to read. Charts and graphs need captions. So what's a caption? A caption is the sentence below the chart or graph which describes what the chart or graph represents and nothing more. So you'll notice this little sentence that I've got here down below. This is a caption. And if what we're looking at is a graph, usually you see the word figure, which means we're talking about a graph, and then some kind of number to uniquely identify this graph. And then here is the description. And so what we're looking at is a bar chart of the top 7 ethnicities in the United States in 2010. And that's all you need to say. That describes what this chart is all about. Okay. So to simplify referencing charts or graphs, charts and graphs are commonly referred to as figures. And that's why I used this word figure down here. Okay, 2 bar charts can be positioned side by side. So here I've got one for 2010, and here's another bar chart for the data in 2021. So these 2 bar charts positioned side by side illustrate a significant consideration. One needs to create charts and graphs with the consideration it may be scaled down. So even though the chart or graph is scaled down, it must still be legible. And one may need to oversize the font in the original to compensate. So what that means is the original image, we may have needed to make this text larger so that when it's shrunk down to this size, you can still read it on the page. Now, unlike pie charts, bar charts make it easy to compare 2 columns of data. So for example, 2010 and 2021. So here we do have a legend. Okay, but this is really simple to read and understand. Black shading is the 2010 data, And this diagonal shading is the 2021 data. So we can see for the white ethnicity, it was 63.8% in 2010, but 59.3% in 2021. So it kind of went down a little bit over the course of a decade. Whereas if you look at the Hispanic ethnicity, it was 16.4% in 2010 and 18.9% in 2021. So it actually went up a little bit over the course of a decade. So you can easily put two data sets side by side in like a full width graph. And because it's a full width, page width graph, it's really easy to read. You can read the smaller numbers, you can read the labels. And notice that this graph, I've also got a caption down below, which describes this graph. Now you can play around with other types of bar charts. So, here is actually a bar chart where all of 2010 is in one bar and all of 2021 is another. And the area of the bar that's shaded represents an ethnicity. So here I put the legend across the bottom so that these bars would be as wide as possible and easiest to read. The legend by default was off to the side, but you can change the legend to be across the bottom to make your plot area larger and make the graph overall easier to read. So Microsoft Excel has a library of chart and graph types that can be explored. So this is a screenshot of the insert chart menu. And you can see you've got column or bar charts, line charts, pie charts, different kinds of bar charts, scatter plots, histograms, box and whiskers, and so on. So there's a lot of different ways that you can format your data so that you can see patterns in the data.